Sweeney and the Clemson Tigers will be coming off of the practice field later today up in Tiger Town. So we'll hopefully get an update there on some of the players. And if there indeed is a bit of an outbreak of COVID-19 within the team at this point, we'll let you know. But I'd be shocked if there's not something right at this point. I mean, I really would be shocked if that's not the case, given what we see nationally right now. 803-450-0086. That is a text line. That is a phone line. You call us. You leave us a message. You jump on board and be a part of things. We'd love to have you here on the program. UAB and Jacksonville State tonight at 7:30. You can watch it from on ESPN. Again, UAB and Jacksonville State facing off tonight. That's the lone game in town. Tomorrow, though, I mean, it's a hefty slate of ball games tomorrow. What, like 15, maybe 17 games on the docket tomorrow? The Citadel's at Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers, number 22 in the country. That's 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus over in Conway. You've also got UCF. And this is a game I mentioned a couple of days ago as being a game that's sort of, I think, under the radar. Remember, Gus Malzahn, now the head coach at UCF. 7 o'clock on ESPN. They host Boise State. I mean, when you think about UCF and how the Knights have wanted to be one of those teams in the mix for the college football playoff, they wanted to, they've got their little banner that they put up about winning a national title. Boise State, for many years, was sort of that same type of team. Like, they wanted their chance. And then, man, that matchup that they had with Oklahoma, I don't care who you are. I don't care that it wasn't in high definition. You go back and watch that game, that Fiesta Bowl with Boise State and Oklahoma. I think that game was played on Fox back when, well, Fox still doesn't carry a ton of football, but back then they didn't carry much at all, maybe just some bowl games. And that game with the hook and lateral, with the Statue of Liberty play, with it feeling like Oklahoma was in big trouble only to have Boise State throw a pick six right before the end of the game and then have to make a mega drive to come down the field. I mean, just the ups and downs. I mean, that game still kind of gets me when I think about just how good it was. An instant classic, an all-time classic, maybe one of the best bowl games anybody's ever seen, and a national championship was not on the line. But again, tomorrow, Boise State at Central Florida, UCF. They don't like it when you call them Central Florida. That matchup taking place at the Bounce House in Orlando, Florida. Also tomorrow night in the ACC, South Florida's at NC State, a 7:30 start on the ACC network. Close to home, East Carolina and App State will face off on ESPNU, plus a marquee matchup at 8 o'clock on Fox. Fourth-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes on the road at Minnesota. Can P.J. Fleck and the boys row the boat and shock the college football world with an upset special out of the gates? And then only one other top 25 team in action. Actually, Utah's in action against Weber State. What? I don't think that's all that important. But Southern Utah also going to be at Arizona State, again at 10:30 at night. So not anything overly significant in terms of teams within the top 25. Friday, you want to open your day, 6 o'clock, ESPN, right when we go off the air, North Carolina, Mac Brown, Sam Howell, the Tar Heels, on the road, Blacksburg, get your lunch pail, Lane Stadium. Won't be under the lights per se. 6 o'clock kickoff, not exactly going to be dark, but maybe in the second half, maybe Enter Sandman will be coming out. Duke's at Charlotte, 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network Friday. And then also nationally on Friday, Michigan State at Northwestern. And again, the Northwestern Wildcats are quarterbacked by former Clemson Tiger quarterback Hunter Johnson, 9 o'clock on ESPN. And then your Saturday slate, good gravy. We'll be here till tomorrow afternoon trying to give you the rundown of all of those. But again, just some quick hitters on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as it's official. The college football season is here. 803-450-0086 outside of Clemson, Georgia. What's the other game you're really looking forward to seeing this weekend? Are you anxious to see Ohio State and Minnesota, especially after the way Clemson played against the Buckeyes last year? And I've heard several people on the radio here in the past couple of days as we've gotten closer to the season talking about how Clemson was embarrassed by Ohio State, talking about how Clemson was embarrassed by LSU on the national stage. And if they were to go into this game against Georgia and be embarrassed by the Bulldogs, what would that say about the Clemson program? And I got to tell you, one thing I learned from these conversations is that those national pundits have not been listening to the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, where I tell you how it is. And again, the fact remains that, yes, in both of those games, Clemson was beaten pretty soundly. But I don't think they were beaten nearly as significantly as the national media would have you believe. Don't believe me? Okay, take a moment. Fire up your YouTube when you get a minute. Go find Clemson and LSU. And go find the play late in the second quarter where Clyde Edwards-Helaire steps out of bounds, puts his hands out of bounds, and ultimately turns into a drive that scores a touchdown for LSU. And in addition to that, they get the ball back and score again. What if that play doesn't happen and they only score once before the half? That was like a 30-yard play. That play was like 30 yards. Now, maybe they pick up 30 yards on the next play and it doesn't matter, but maybe they don't. Maybe the clock dwindles down and they only get one score before the half. That is a huge game-changing play, and how it was missed, I have no idea. And again, this is not, Swanee's living in this rearview mirror. I'm just making the statement here that game, I don't believe, was as bad as it ended up being. Also, let's not forget about the T. Higgins pass interference after there was a little discard. But again, I'm not arguing that Clemson should have won that game. I'm arguing whether or not Clemson was embarrassed on that stage. And if LSU was really so significantly better than Clemson, I don't believe they were. Then you go back to the Ohio State game. Ohio State up by 7? Second quarter. Going to be a fourth down situation for the Buckeyes. Oh. Penalty. James Skalski. Thrown out of the game. Ejected for targeting. First down Ohio State. Touchdown Ohio State. Buckeyes get the ball back. Another touchdown. Boom. There's your 21-point second quarter. There's Clemson playing from behind the rest of the game. Minus Skalski. I mean, look, if that is getting embarrassed on the biggest stage, in your opinion, then yep, guess what? Clemson got embarrassed on the biggest stage 2 years in a row in the college football playoff. To me, odd circumstance in the LSU game, no doubt. Like, how do you miss that Clyde Edwards-Helaire play? I'd reset it for you here on the show, but you just get angry. You just get mad. And then you go back to the play with James Skalski. That's one of those bang bang plays. He's not trying to. There's no malicious intent. It is bad form in the respect that he is trying to put his shoulder into Fields, but he's not keeping his head up. But those are the plays that turn that game, or those two games, into what they ultimately became, in my opinion. And if those plays happen, I don't know that those games necessarily go or turn into the blowouts that they did. And listen, like I said, I'm not trying to get you worked up, Tiger Nation.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
But that's the facts as I see it on those games. And it might not have been enough for you to win. But I don't think the term embarrassment, and I've heard it, is what happened in those two games for Clemson against LSU and Ohio State in back-to-back seasons in the playoffs. But if that is the term you wanted to use, if you were a Gamecock peeking over the fence and hanging out with us, and you said, yeah, you were embarrassed, Clemson Tiger fans would say, well, you guys don't even know what it's like to be on that stage. That's what Tiger fans would say to you. I wouldn't. I would say this to you. If you say, yeah, you know what? That was embarrassing. Okay, fine. I'll accept your premise and I'll make a counteroffer here on the show that shakes the Southland today. When you get into matchups of that magnitude, and when you play against teams that are great, that stuff happens. Don't believe me? Reset it to 2018. Trevor Lawrence and Clemson just drilling Alabama 44-16. Could have been 51-16. Tigers are taking a knee at the end of that ball game at the goal line. I would make the argument probably should have put the 50 spot on Saban just to do it. But that's what can happen in games where you have a play or two, pick six out of the gates for Tua, rattled. Never really recovered. So much so that in the second half, Alabama's running one of the worst fake field goals in the history of the game. I mean, one of the greatest coaches of all time, maybe the greatest college coach of all time, is making just a boneheaded decision. That's what can happen when the play or two goes awry. But if your premise is still that Clemson's been embarrassed 2 times in a row, and they go into this game against Georgia and they get embarrassed, in your mind's eye, for a 3rd time in a row on a big stage, what does that say about where this Clemson program is, in your opinion? What does that say about this Tiger program as we head into a year where they would have to fight their way back? As I said yesterday, have to hope a little bit that Georgia's not a one-loss team at the end of the year, because then the comparisons might not go so great for Clemson. But if they were to just get embarrassed, I mean, would you as a Tiger fan, would you say to me, Swanee, you know what? This program's really fallen off since 2018, since Clemson hoisted that 2nd national title. Would you say, Swanee, we just can't hang with the big boys anymore? You know, we can walk through the ACC like it's nothing to it. But when it comes down to playing the biggest and the best in college football, we can't do it anymore. Where would you fall on that conversation? 803-450-0086, text line, phone line, be a part of the program. Listen, this DNA is a strange thing, man. So my sister's hanging out with us today. She says, what about when we smacked Alabama? Thank you. Exactly. Right. Philip says, I'm not sure about the LSU game, but the Ohio State game, the Tigers had their running game stopped, thus making Clemson a one-dimensional team. Having to pass, that always worries me about the Georgia game. The other thing, too, about that Ohio State game that we forget is Tony Elliott, right, was in the COVID-19 protocol, as we've been talking about COVID-19 here a little bit today on the show. And I didn't think that Clemson's offense necessarily looked all that different, minus Tony Elliott, with Brandon Streeter being the main guy. But, I mean, it shifts everything. I mean, it just shifts everything around. And this is ahead of a monumental matchup in a game where, let's not forget, Ohio State had led Clemson the previous season. What was it, 16-0 in the Fiesta Bowl, and the Tigers came back. Like they had revenge on their minds, revenge in their hearts. I'm not telling you Clemson couldn't get out of there without winning the ball game, but Ohio State wanted that game for a number of reasons, including what happened the year before, including Dabo Swinney's ranking of the Buckeyes heading into the playoffs. I mean, if Dabo Swinney had Ohio State number 2 in his poll, I don't know that it changes the outcome, right? But I can tell you, what do you have him at 10 or 12 or whatever the number ended up being? that didn't do anything to make Ohio State not focus on Clemson. Put it that way. I can guarantee you when those players were getting ready to go to bed at night, they had their little iPads out or they're watching game film on the computer and they're rubbing their eyes and they're like, oh, man, am I tired? But Dabo Swinney ranked us low. I got more. Put a pot of coffee on. I'm not quite done with my film study yet. Like that's, to me, that's where my head would be. That's where my head would be. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line. Be a part of the program. Hang out with us. Have a good time as we talk all things college football. Again, some of the big news in the sports world today. Jimbo Fisher getting a substantial raise and extension at Texas A&M. And I mean, why not? I mean, he's lost